Last week, the Justice Department served an indictment to Trump for 37 felony counts related to his intentional mishandling of classified documents.
Yeah. And they also confirmed that Trump straight up had nuclear secrets that were just out and about at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
Now, what we did know initially was that there were some classified documents that were at the same classification level as nuclear secrets, but we didn't know that there were straight up nuclear secrets.
Yeah.
But in the actual indictment that was put out, it actually says, quote, "The classified documents Trump stored in his boxes included some information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the United States and its allies to military attack, and plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack."
Yeah. This is huge. Like the revelations of not only the level, but the severity and the vulnerabilities contained in some of these classified documents, I think is very important. One of the arguments that has been coming that like Republicans specifically have been putting out since we kind of first learned about Trump, having classified documents at Mar-a-Lago is like, well, there's just a general overclassification problem in Washington. They just classify everything and just to be on the safe side. And so a bunch of documents are probably not even that, important to be classified.
Which I actually do agree with.
Totally.
In fact, I think that there are some things that are classified that are only classified to protect the ass of elites. And that's the type of shit that should not be classified.
Yep.
The type of documents that get put out there by whistleblowers, such as Chelsea Manning, those are the types of things that we do deserve to see. Those are the types of things that should not be classified. Those are the types of things that they only classify to defend against embarrassment. This shit is the type of thing that they classify so that enemies can't harm our country or obtain nuclear secrets.
Yes.
Even a civil libertarian like me, who is completely mistrustful of the government, understands that shit like this should be classified.
Yes, seriously. So the specific allegations are that Trump stored some of our most closely held secrets. To Nathan's point, this includes nuclear programs, this includes vulnerabilities, potential attack plans, secrets about foreign nations, and then he stored them in Mar-a-Lago in, a ballroom, in a bathroom, in a club, or in a shower, in his bedroom, in an office, in a storage room, kind of all over the place, including movement among all of these rooms. And the charges highlight that Trump specifically obstructed federal officials when they tried to reclaim these documents. And in total, of the 37 felony counts related to this indictment, 31 are separate instances of, quote, willful retention of national defense information and constitute a conspiracy to obstruct justice when reclaiming these documents, including multiple counts related to withholding or concealing documents from a federal investigation, and a charge of making false statements and representations.
On top of that, we have corruptly concealing a document or record, concealing a document in a federal investigation, a scheme to conceal, false statements and representation, and then another count of false statements and representation.
Yes.
Like those are the rest of the counts.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And the indictment shows that Trump actually shared some of these classified materials and national defense information with people without any type of security clearance, much less the level of security clearance that they would be required to review these documents, including people from his political action committee. And yet, in his arraignment on Tuesday, he pleaded, of course, not guilty to all counts, and even flew off to New Jersey to do a rally and fundraiser for his 2024 presidential run, claiming all of this was a total witch hunt and nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah. Now, each of these charges carries a maximum fine of $250,000 and prison sentences. Maximum, I should say, prison sentences ranging between 5 to 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for each individual one.
Yeah. Yeah, and these are the first federal charges filed against Trump, right? We still have the felony counts filed in the state of New York against him personally as well. Like he's facing like 70 something, like 70 counts almost of felony charges at this point.
Yeah. One thing that's important to note though is that this is a federal investigation. Whereas the New York stuff, that's a state investigation, which means that if he becomes president, he could theoretically pardon himself for this, but he couldn't necessarily do that for state charges.
Yes, I think that's a really good thing to call out. Yeah, the pardon power by the president applies to federal charges and is pretty much unlimited. So he could pardon himself for the federal crimes.
Yeah. And I would say this charge right here is one of the charges that I think is one of the more juicy charges. Like, I know that when we were doing our breakdown of the various different legal issues that Trump was going through, I mean, I came out and said, like, of all of the things that Trump potentially did, like all of the crimes Trump potentially committed, the least of my worries is the campaign finance violation regarding Stormy Daniels. And to the extent of which that should be charged is the extent of which, you know, we need to maintain the fact that we live in a republic where nobody's above the law. And if Michael Cohen was going to be charged for that and sent to jail, then Donald Trump sure as hell should have been charged for that and sent to jail. But in the grand scheme of things, that's not a huge deal. Like it really was not, it's really not a big deal.
Yeah.
This is a big fucking deal.
It is a big deal. And one of the arguments that a lot of Republicans are making is that this is not really a big deal. That this is just like, you know, a run-of-the-mill.
Who doesn't have nuclear secrets in their shower?
Exactly. Yeah, this is a run-of-the-mill case where, like, you know, just like Pence and just like Biden, you know, Trump inadvertently had some classified records in his possession. And ultimately, like, this is maybe a Presidential Records Act case, if anything, and just really not, you know, in any way rising to like a significant felony or federal crime. One of the people pushing this narrative is Lindsey Graham, and the way that they're framing this is by saying that, you know, he's being charged under the Espionage Act, but Trump's not a spy, right? So Lindsey Graham said, quote, "You may hate his guts, but he's not a spy. He did not commit espionage," calling out that the charges seem ridiculous and paint an impression that just isn't true. And I think it's worth breaking that down because espionage, because, you know, these charges are, or a number of these counts are, you know, falling under the Espionage Act, which sounds extreme because, you know, because to Lindsey Graham's point, Trump isn't necessarily a spy, right? Yeah. We actually don't know whether he what his motivations were for trying to keep these documents, whether he was trying to profit from them, whether he was trying to just inflate his ego, whether he was just trying to show off to people that were visiting him by being able to wave nuclear secrets in front of their faces.
I do think that at this point we can still rule out just simple incompetence, though, because the FBI did come to him and say, "Hey, we know you have some documents, turn them over."
Yeah.
And if it were just simple incompetence, like was the case with Mike Pence and Joe Biden, he would have fully cooperated and handed everything over.
Yes.
The fact that he didn't do that makes it clear that just incompetence is extremely unlikely.
Yes. And I think that's a key point here, right? Like, so it's not just that being willfully awful is the crime and being inadvertently awful is not, right? Yeah. It's like,
it's still a crime even if it was incompetence.
Maybe.
Well, if they came to him and said, like, give us those documents, and he didn't give them the documents, whether it's because the sun was in his eyes, or he, like, you know, his abacus was broken or some shit, like, he didn't give the documents when he was supposed to.
Totally.
So regardless of what was going on in his head, which, you know, I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but I'm saying that a crime can still have been committed even if it was just
Absolutely.
incompetence.
You're totally right.
What I'm saying is that it is very unlikely to be incompetence.
Exactly. And that's the thing. That's why the bundle of charges that's happening here is so strong together. So, like, to your point, like, for Pence, for Biden, as soon as all this stuff is coming out with Trump, they both proactively, like, had aides look for national security, secrets or classified documents in their possession. They did find some and proactively turned those over to the government. And I'll talk through the statute in a second under the Espionage Act, but that is the correct course of action. And importantly, it's not a crime to necessarily just inadvertently have some of these documents. However, to Nathan's point, like, if you're not turning them over, and in Trump's case, like, actually provide, like, falsifying records, like signing an affidavit saying you've turned over the documents when you haven't, like, that is a crime in and of itself. And on top of that, the indictment indicates clearly that Trump had direct personal involvement in not only taking these documents, but also concealing them, preventing the government from recovering them. And that's what takes this from the level of, a violation of, like, Records Act or something like that to the level of the Espionage Act. So let me just go through quickly some of the components of the Espionage Act that are, like, very clearly satisfied here. And obviously, of course, like, this is subject to Trump being convicted of this crime. But, to the extent that the indictment is true, it seems pretty clear that he has violated the Espionage Act. The specific language in 18 U.S.C. 793, Section E, goes something like this. Quote, whoever, having unauthorized possession of, access to, or control over any document, and I'm removing a list of what describes a document, or note relating to the national defense or information related to the national defense, which information the possessor has reason to believe could be used to the injury of the United States or to the advantage of any foreign nation, who willfully communicates, delivers, transmits, or causes to be communicated, delivered, or transmitted, or attempts to communicate, deliver, transmit, or cause to be communicated, delivered, or transmit to any person not entitled to receive it, or who willfully retains the same and fails to deliver it to the officer or employee of the United States entitled to receive it, is, like, guilty under this act. Right? So Trump, knowing that he has classified documents and willfully retaining them, that is a direct violation and a clear violation of the Espionage Act. Talking about those documents to someone without a security clearance is a direct violation of the Espionage Act. Like, it's beyond, a Presidential Records Act violation. This is a severe breach of national security for someone like Trump to have and then discuss and improperly store these kinds of documents.
Yeah. And I would also like to point out something else that I think is a really important point to make when it comes to the significance of the fact that this indictment is happening to begin with. Mm-hmm. Michael, when federal prosecutors indict somebody, do you know what the conviction rate is? I want to see if you can guess.
I don't know. Let's say they flip a coin, right? They win some, they lose some. Let's say it's 50%.
99.6%.
Fuck, that's crazy.
99.6 motherfucking percent.
Because they don't fucking bring a case that's not fucking airtight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So to put that in perspective, in 2018, there were 79,704 cases, and of those, only 320 resulted in acquittals.
Jesus fucking Christ, that's
crazy.
They
don't fuck around with these.
Yeah,
all right?
Seriously.
If they announce charges, again, I mean, we do still need to operate under the assumption of, innocent until proven guilty. But if they bring up these charges, they got some really good evidence. They have a damn good reason for doing it.
Especially in a case this high profile against someone this high profile. Like, the bar must be even higher.
And this this high scrutinized, like this
Yes.
level of scrutiny. Like, because they know that there is going to be a well-oiled propaganda machine that no matter how airtight their evidence is going to scrutinize every tiny little detail of it.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, if there is a prosecutor or an investigator that drives a Prius, they're going to accuse them of being Antifa. Like, they know that perfectly well. They would not bring these unless they had some pretty solid legal reasoning and pretty solid evidence.
Yeah. I think that's such a fucking good point. That stat blows my mind. Over 99% conviction rate for charges brought. Wow, that blows my
It
mind.
is important to note that most of those end in plea deals, which do still technically count as a win.
Sure.
So
And we've talked about how those can be problematic, not in this case.
Yep. But when they do go to trial, the acquittal rate for bench trials, for some reason, bench trials and jury trials are like the acquittal rate is different. I have no idea why.
I don't really know what the difference is between those.
Not really me either. But to give you all the facts, the acquittal rate for bench trials is 38%, which is higher, but
Pretty high. Yeah.
that still means you're more likely to lose than win if you're a defendant who goes to trial. For jury trials, it's only 14%.
Wow. Jeez.
So again, that should still emphasize to you the fact that this would not have been brought up if they didn't have some sound legal reasoning behind it.
It's not frivolous. And to your point, that means nothing for that's not evidence for the truth of these claims, but it's evidence in the column of it's likely not frivolous. They're not bringing this for no reason.
It is ethos for the prosecutors.
Yes, totally.
To sound like an academic who is pretentious.
And to your point though about like the like media coverage of this, especially in the right wing media, like scrutinizing every aspect of this and like Trump attempting to like win in the court of public opinion. I did want to mention like a couple of the arguments that Republicans in the media and then elected Republicans and Trump surrogates are like making about this indictment specifically. So one thing the president has said and a number of other people have said publicly on like news programs and stuff like that is that the president, or Donald Trump when he was president, with the power to declassify, because the president does have a pretty broad power to declassify pretty much any material that he wants, was able to declassify these documents ahead of moving them to Mar-a-Lago, and as a result, like there's actually no violation here. So a couple things. First of all, the classification level is actually not a part of the Espionage Act. If you'll note that like the language in the act itself is relating to national defense or information that could cause injury to the United States or the advantage of a foreign nation. It mentions nothing about the level of classification. So even if he were to declassify a nuclear secret, that would still fall under the Espionage Act. But a second point is that we have actually really strong evidence that he actually didn't do this mind declassification thing, because there's actually, according to the indictment anyway, there's a recording of Trump talking about this classified material and admitting that since he's no longer president, he's not allowed to have it, and saying that he lacked the ability to declassify it. Like, open and shut.
He's the dumbest motherfucker. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I also want to address some other common arguments that we keep seeing by Republicans. The one that I think has been their favorite one is, this is a banana republic because Biden is a dictator who has single-handedly ordered this investigation of Trump and is trying to lock up his political opponent.
Wow. What a serious charge that we should consider carefully and might actually be true. Wow.
So here's why that's bullshit. First off, there's no evidence that Biden directed the Justice Department to do this. Merrick Garland appointed a special counsel, and there's no evidence to suggest that he was directly coordinating with Biden on that.
In fact, that's why you appoint a special counsel, is to specifically take it out of the control of the Department of Justice and out of the direct control of the executive branch.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Also, I just like to address the whole Banana Republic thing. You know what happens in Banana Republics? Elites commit crimes and they don't get charged for it. That's what happens in a Banana Republic. If he were held to a different set of standards simply because he has political popularity among a fringe group of idiots, that, if he wasn't charged with committing crimes because of that, that would be evidence of a Banana Republic. That would be a Banana Republic. All right? A republic is a system in which nobody is above the law. And if you can commit a crime, but because of your status in society, you are not charged with that crime, you are above the law, which means we are not in an actual republic. And on top of that, the comparison to Biden and Pence, like, we've already addressed the fact, like the fact that they had classified documents. We already addressed the fact that there are key differences, but let's assume that there aren't key differences. If the argument is there are other criminals that exist, the solution is not, therefore we shouldn't charge any criminals. You are a dumbass.
Yeah. I think that is my favorite fucking part of the political witch hunt argument, which Trump has pushed. Literally, J.D. Vance in the House is attempting to stop the fulfillment of positions at the DOJ, like the placement of like political appointees at the DOJ in like as a protest to the weaponization of the DOJ by the Biden administration. And yet the critical flaw is that like we should be prosecuting everybody who is guilty of a crime before the United States.
Yeah. And there's so much projection because they know full well that if the roles were reversed, they'd be cheering it on. Like, yes. Trump could be directly, publicly telling his Justice Department, go investigate my political opponent. I mean, he fucking did. He told Ukraine to do that.
He told Ukraine
to fucking do that.
He fucking directed his Justice Department to do that. That's why Rod Rosenstein fucking resigned, is because he was directing like all of like so many people in his administration to like go and investigate like Hillary Clinton, his political opponents. It's like he did that directly.
Yeah. The thing is, I am not married to any politician, even ones that I voted for.
Yeah.
If you can show me evidence that they are corrupt, then show that evidence and lock their ass up. That is completely fine with me.
Yeah.
In
fact, we advocate on this show for adding more reasons to prevent calling more types of corruption that are not illegal types of corruption.
Yeah. In my perfect world, like, if you accepted money from super PACs would be illegal, and if you accepted money from a super PAC, like if you accepted bribery in any form, even through something like a super PAC, like you'd have your ass thrown in prison. That's my ideal world. Most Democratic politicians do that. I'm not saying that because I want only Republicans to be locked up or I want political opponents to be locked up. I'm saying that because I want the people that represent me, Democrat or Republican, to not be fucking criminals.
Yeah.
That's
liberal
what I want.
cuck.
So the whole thing of, the argument of, oh really? You want to investigate Trump? Well, did you know other politicians are also criminals? I am so smart. Yeah, I fucking know that. I want them investigated too. Like,
yeah.
That is not an argument.
Yeah.
That is not an argument.
Yeah.
Like, it blows my mind how sycophantic these people are to a person.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine being that sycophantic towards a person, even a person you agree with, even a person who fights for policies you like. There are other people that exist that fight to fuck over gay people.
Yeah.
All right. There are other politicians that exist to fuck over poor people. There are other politicians that exist to fuck over immigrants.
It's a weird tact you're taking on. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like, why this guy? Why this
Yeah.
guy? But speaking of Trump sycophants, we should probably spend a second talking about the judge in this case.
Oh yeah. God.
So this is a pretty disappointing development. Although I would be surprised if like Jack Smith had not accounted for this in some way. So I'm curious how this will unfold. But basically, the judge in this case is Judge Eileen Cannon. You may have heard about her. We may have talked about her on this show because she had actually ruled earlier on a search warrant for Mar-a-Lago in this case, where she like just made up exceptions for former presidents out of whole cloth, like just absolutely no legal basis, just made them up and to protect Trump, and then was actually rebuked by the judges that then reviewed and then overturned that decision. And judges in cases like this have a lot of influence over jury selection and instructions. They have a lot of power over trial dates and determining how long trials will take. And so, in terms of the political implications of this, as it relates to the timing of the election in 2024, as it relates to whether we'll get, a fair, impartial trial, is like a little bit up in the air, given Judge Cannon's history as a Trump appointee who has already demonstrated bias towards, providing fake legal solutions in favor of Trump. But we'll see. I mean, ultimately, like, decisions are appealable, and yeah, we'll see how this develops. And Jack Smith is super skilled. That's the thing. Like, there's a reason this case is being heard in Florida in front of that federal judge. And even though it was like chance that this judge come up, it was like a 1 in 3 chance that this judge would be selected. So I doubt that this was an unforeseen complication. So we'll see how it develops.